Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. I hope you're logging in now to Jamaicans.com for another wonderful session with yours truly. For those just logging in, remember to tell your family and friends to tune in. So, I'll be going over immigration as always. This show is about providing answers if you have questions in regards to immigration and migration to the United States. If you don't have your questions and you don't want to ask your questions online, what I usually do, I just provide answers for questions that came across my desk while, doing my work because I do immigration. All right, two things that came across my desk today that was very important. One was in regards to a visa. And I wanted to break that down because some people are not familiar with what happens when you get a visa. So when you get a visa, a visitor's visa, or whatever visa, work visa to come to the United States, yes, you're guaranteed, like it could be for a year, it could be for 10 years. So you could say, all right, I have a 10-year visa. So that means it does not mean that you could stay in the United States for 10 years. I know people might be saying, oh yeah, we know that. But a lot of people don't know that. So if you do come into the United States and you come through the border, meaning you come on the plane, you get inspected, you come through, they usually give you what's called an I-94. The I-94 states how long, like the type of visa you have and how long you are required to stay here. So it could be for a week, which I've heard people gotten, the stamp for a few days. It could be for 6 months or it could be for a year. But when you come here and you get that notification of how long you are supposed to stay, that is the only required time you can stay in the United States. So not because you have a 10-year visa. If the I-94 said you only have 6 months, you have to stay for up to the 6 months and leave. Because if you don't leave, that means you have violated the visa. But the visa requirement is that you comply with the requirements of having this visa. So if you don't comply with it and you overstay even by a day, like if it's no emergency, whatever, they will take away that visa. And the reason why I came up with that question is because somebody stated to me today that they have their 10-year visa, but their I-94 expired. So they wanted to know what to do in order to renew their visa. If you already overstayed the United States, you cannot renew that visa. Once you overstay, that visa is no longer valid. So you just have to just say, you know what, go with that visa. Usually you're able to, if you're going to change status, say for instance, if you got married or you have a U.S. citizen child is going to petition for you, you could definitely change your status. Other status is quite easy, complicated to change. So for example, if you want to get a work visa, but you already overstayed the allotted time you had on your visitor's visa, you're not able to get another visa. All right, so always remember to be compliant. And I've said it before, they no longer give that document when you come to the border to show that you got the I-94. They usually tell you to go online. If the officer doesn't tell you, you have to go online at the cbp.com website, put in your passport information, your name, and be able to get a copy of your I-94. All right, so that was important to discuss today because a lot of people are having issues because some things, because individuals might get the visa for the first time. They don't know what the requirement is. We have individuals that might tell them that, oh, you'll be okay. But I'm telling you, no, if you come here with the I-94 said you're supposed to stay for 6 months or a week, stay in the required time. If you do feel that you might want to stay longer than the time they've allotted for you, you could file what's called an extension. And once you file the extension, if it's approved, then you could stay longer than what they originally gave to you. But once you overstay that visa, be very careful. If you overstay the required time, you might be barred for life for getting another visa. So think about it before you overstay. And I know a lot of people don't want to hear that, but if you don't have a sure way of legalizing your status and you want to travel, because I've had people who overstayed, but after they've overstayed, they're like, oh, but I need to go back to my country to take care of affairs that I have in my home country. Once you overstay, it's hard to say you could leave the country. Because if you do leave, you are barred from coming back. So I always say, if you already overstayed and you're trying to figure out your status, just go ahead and figure it out before you leave. If you have no other option, then leave. But once you leave, you're usually barred. Only under certain circumstances, you're able to get a waiver. Pat said, good afternoon. My Filipino friend overstayed her visa. She got married, but her husband's job is not enough to support for the visa. Can I help with the visa process? Thanks, my friend. You're a blessing to our community. Yes, you're able to help because you're talking about the affidavit of support, where you're going to show the government that that individual that's migrating will not be a burden on the U.S. government. So yes, you could be a sponsor as long as you look at the income requirement and ensure that you are able to meet that requirement. So for instance, if her husband has, say it's just she and her husband, but her husband has minor children that he's claiming on his tax returns, so you have to calculate those, say it's 3 children and the husband and wife, that's 5. So you have to look at it, and if you're filing for other individuals in your household, you have to include that when you calculate how much the income requirement will be. So you have to make sure you could have multiple individuals, but it's very important to know that when you sign this document stating that you're going to provide support, the affidavit of support, it's a contract between you and the U.S. government. It's not a contract between you and the person you're petitioning for. So if that party end up being a dependent on the government can go after you to recoup that money that they help to assist that individual. So just be careful before you do that. You ensure that the individual that you're going to sign this document for understands that it is a contract and that they have to carry their own weight. Like they have to ensure that they go work and able to provide for themselves, because if they fail to do that, they could go after you to do it. And it goes also for spouses who are petitioning for spouses, and they think like, oh, I could get a divorce and it ends. It doesn't end there, because if you sign that obligation with the government, remember it's a contract between you and the government until that person becomes a citizen. So if that party and you divorce and that party goes and get assistance, the government can go after you. And another thing that a lot of people don't know is that if you're a husband and wife and you do the affidavit of support, you divorce your wife or your husband can also use that agreement to try to get spousal support, because you're saying that you are going to provide for this party and not going to let them suffer, be a burden, get government assistance. So it's a major contract that before you go into it, you have to look into it and weigh the pros and cons, ensure that you know the party well enough, and ensure that they will keep their obligation until they become a U.S. citizen. All right, so yes, you could, I know it's long-winded, but I always try to make people understand that it's a serious obligation between you and the government can definitely, which they have done in the past, go after individuals who have signed this document and then the other party decide not to work or try to go get assistance from the government. All right, so yes, you could do it. Make sure you meet the requirement. It's based on income and the amount of individual that you claim on your taxes and the party claim on your taxes. I hope I've answered your questions. And if anybody have any other questions in regards to immigration, you're just joining, you could definitely ask those questions and I'll definitely answer. Pat said, thanks for the explanation. She's very dependable and hardworking. Okay, that's good. As long as you know that she'll do that, then you could definitely go ahead and do that. And remember that they're gonna need your taxes and your wages, your W-2 to show your income. And for some reason, I know some individuals don't want to provide their social security number, but it is required that you provide a social security number, because that information the government will need to check your background. Sometimes people don't want to give it, but it's a requirement that you give your social security number. All right. And also remember that if you don't have the full income, you could also substitute other things. Like if you have money in your bank account, you could provide that information. If you have assets, like you own artwork or other properties, you could also use that to include, to substitute or add to the difference in your income plus what is required. So some people don't look at that, like you could look into that in order if you're not able to get a co-sponsor or you just want to do it by yourself. All right. So the other thing I want to go into is sort of VAWA. And this is for individuals who are victims of abuse that are going through the whole immigration process and their spouse are being abusive. I talk about that again because it keeps coming up daily by individuals who don't know what to do because they know they need immigration benefits. So one thing is very important to understand is that immigration understand that people do go through abuse situations because they need a benefit, and people will take advantage of them, whether it's financially. And so they understand these things. And they understand the whole process when an individual is being abused. So I've had one person say to me, well, they don't have enough evidence of the abuse because, it was verbally. They understand that it can be verbal, so you don't really have any major proof of it. Sometimes people, because they're going through abuse, they don't want to talk about it. They don't want to talk to family, friends. They don't want to call the police because they fear that they're going to end up in deportation. They don't want to go home. And immigration understands that. So when you present the evidence, they don't look at, say you have to have A, B, C, D, E, F, G. They look at the quality of information and the quantity of information and what you have. So if you don't have proof of the abuse, they've got other things. They can have individuals write statements about it. Sometimes when people go through the abuse, like the party will say, I don't want to add it to the bank account. They don't want to put you on the list because they don't know what they want to collect money from. So these are things they look at. So you should always not be fearful that because you don't have certain evidence, you're not able to establish that you're actually abused. Because you don't want to be in an abusive situation and just stay there just because you want this immigration benefit. So, but speak to an expert who could help you to figure out what evidence you could get to submit to establish this abuse. So you don't have to stay. You don't have to look and say, oh, we don't have police report. I wasn't hit. I don't have any mark. Also, you could go through counseling. The counseling doesn't have to be where you're going to a therapist, but you could go to a pastor, a trusted pastor, to talk about your problems, and then they could help to provide statements on your behalf. And I always say, if you're going through something, always find parties that you trust to talk about it. And don't be fearful or ashamed, because a lot of people go through things. It's really hard because I've seen where clients say, if I work money, the person just take every single dime. They have me sleeping on the floor. They're cursing me out. They say they're going to send me back home. They can't do that because they're trying to get an immigration benefit, right? So always speak to somebody if you're not sure if you're going through, or they said the party will tell them that they have submitted the paperwork in regards to getting their green card and they haven't done anything. So just be aware that if there's a way around it, you just have to speak to a professional. All right. Pat said, God bless you. Another friend of mine was deported for narcotics. Then he came back illegally. He was deported again. Can his children file for him to come back? I'm going to be honest. No, because one, he has two major things against him. One, he was deported for narcotics. He was deported and he was dealing with narcotics is like one of the major things. Selling, distributing is one of the major things. That's a no-no in regards to immigration. So if he has that on him because he was deported, then he came back in illegally and then was deported, there is no waiver I could think of that he would qualify for that would allow him to come back. And if it's his children that are filing for him, if they don't fall in the category where he is entitled to any waiver. All right. So at this point, there is nothing that can be done for him that will allow him to come back. Narcotics are major and he came in twice. He was deported twice. So there's nothing that could be done for him. It's sad, but it happens. Only limited ways a person could come back if they were deported, if there are certain hardships to their family, depending on the crime that they were deported for, then they're able to get certain waivers, which will allow them to adjust. Or also, like what I mentioned earlier about VAWA, if based on the fact that you were deported because of a VAWA situation where you were a victim of abuse and you were deported, then you could use that to come back to the United States, right? So, unfortunately, yeah, your friend is kind of out of steam, and it would make sense to spend a lot of money on it. Right now, with the laws that we have right now, he's fully barred from coming back to the United States. Right? I hope I was helpful with that. I don't know the full facts, but once you say deported twice and narcotics, that's a major no-no. All right, thank you for that question. If anybody that's just joining the live, this is Immigration Times, and I'm an immigration attorney, and I come on weekly to answer any immigration questions and to provide any answers that you might have. And so definitely ask your questions. If you don't want to ask, you could send me an email at admin@Fanger Law Firm, and I'll answer your questions. Pat says also, so if there's a death in his family here, he can't come back. That's not a reason to allow somebody to come back to the United States based on why he went back home. All right. Yeah. It's unfortunate because sometimes people just make silly mistakes when they were younger and they come back to bite you. So this is why I always say, especially with the young children, like when I have clients that are younger, I always say, stay out of trouble, but I always encourage their parents to just go ahead, get their citizenship. Or I always tell people, if you think you qualify for citizenship, go ahead and get it. Because the only sure way you're kind of protected, because you could be in the United States for 30, 40 years with a green card, do a major violation, and they're sending you home back to where you came from. You could be here from the age of 2 and you don't qualify for citizenship, they'll deport you back. So just imagine. And another thing, because I've seen it come around a lot, is that some children are not aware that they don't have legal status, or they do not know that they're just a green card holder. And it's when they get into trouble, they know that they don't have any status, or when they're finishing high school. So it is very important as parents to always let your minor children know their status, because they don't want them to get into any trouble, and at that point they are aware that they really don't have the status because they're hanging around children that are U.S. citizens, and then they might get into trouble. The U.S. citizen child gets to go home, and then they're looking to go back to their home country. So always update your child about their status so they know, they are aware and can protect themselves and know that certain people they're not supposed to hang around, certain things they're not supposed to do, because they'll more than likely be sent back home. All right, and just be aware that if you have minor children that are here, there are benefits for them too, where they could get their green card, and it's something called a special immigrant visa, which you have to look into to see if the child qualifies. But it is available to children who are minors and who come here not by their will, and they're in the United States and they want to get their green card. So that's an option for a lot of them, especially for those who are going through the deportation process. So just to summarize, if you have a child, a minor, and they don't know their status, my advice, update them on their status so they are aware and they can protect themselves, stay out of trouble, and not get into any issues while being here. All right. Thank you for those questions, Pat. So another thing that I think is very important is that even if you're going through the immigration process, you're not sure where you're gonna go and you have like your passport, please ensure that you keep your passport up to date. Even if you're not, if you're in the US without status, but your passport is going to expire, you could definitely get it done through the Jamaica consulate. Remember, you can mail a passport in the mail. All right, a lot of people do that. But always make sure that you look at your passport look at your documentation. If they're about to expire, renew them. Also, for those who are citizens, if you look at your passport, if it's about to expire, get it renewed. Don't wait until last minute and say, all right, I'm going to wait because of an emergency. They have a backlog. If you have a green card, look at it, make sure that it is not about to expire. If it's about to expire, renew it, right? If you have a green card and it expires, it doesn't mean that you lose your status, but renew it, okay? If you have a 2-year conditional, look at it, ensure that you're not close to the date. Remember that you can do it with your spouse to remove the conditions of the green card, but if your spouse doesn't want to do it because you're going through some abusive situation, you could petition by yourself to get the conditions removed. Don't just sit there and disappear and say you can't do anything. Remember, you could file on your own. I've seen a lot of people do that, where because the spouse doesn't want to do it, they're having issues with their spouse, they don't move on to the next step to remove the conditions. You can do it because one of the major things in removing is that you have to establish that you actually had a legitimate marriage, which most time you do, but it's just that things fall apart, which they understand, people get divorced. So don't just disappear and say, all right, you're gonna stay, right? And also remember that when you have removed the conditions, usually if you get your green card after 3 years through marriage, after 3 years, you could apply for your citizenship. If you didn't get it through marriage, it's 5 years, right? If you're at the 3-year mark, but you and your spouse is divorced, you're gonna have to wait until year 5 to get your citizenship, right? So, and separated, so just be aware of that, all right? I also recommend to my clients that once the condition removed and you meet the requirement to be a citizen, go ahead, your marriage is still intact, go ahead and petition to become a citizen, because you don't want, things happen and then you're gonna have to wait longer to become a citizen. All right, so that's very important. And if you have minor children, which just somebody said to me this week that they had a child, they had 2 children, but they didn't want to mention it on their application. And I had to say, no, you have to mention all your children. If it's a jacket, meaning if you think it's not your child, still put that child's name on your application, because you never know, because in the future, if you do decide that, all right, it's my child and I want a petition for the child, but you did not include the child on your initial application. But once you have a file created for immigration, that's what they go back to. They're gonna look through it to see if the information matches. And if it's what a piece that you got, they're gonna go back and look through everything to see. So if they look at it and see that you never mentioned the child, it's gonna appear as if you misrepresented the facts or you committed fraud, right? So list all your children. If you do decide to petition for them later on, then they're already included in your application. They look at it, they say they will ask for DNA. And if you think it's not your child, you're more likely gonna do a DNA. So at that point, you will know if it's your child. But always be aware that you should list all your children. Be truthful on the application because you don't want it to bite. Don't think you're playing smart and you're outsmarting the government, because even if you get your documents, you never know, because I've had it, not in my cases, but I've seen where individuals, they have revoked citizenships, they have taken away documentation, although they have approved it, because you never know if you're gonna take your file randomly and review it. So always be honest and upfront on your application. All right, and as you know, military people have special privilege. So if you are in the military, get married, or petitioning for your parent, I've seen, like, through my practice, sometimes they do drop priority on those cases. So just be aware of that. All right, if you're just joining, I'm Michelle Fanger, and this is Immigration Times, and I provide and I respond to any immigration question that you might have. So if you have any immigration questions and you want to ask them, you could type it in the chat, or if you don't want to type it in the chat, you could send an email to admin at Fanger Law, and I'll definitely respond to those emails and answer those questions. All right, and we have 4 more minutes. So what else I want to touch on that's important to us? I think I mentioned that we have an election year coming up next year. So the only way you could vote is if you are a U.S. citizen. So if you think you qualify to be a U.S. citizen, definitely go ahead and apply if you're so inclined. A lot of people don't want to become a citizen because they think they lose certain rights for their country. It depends. So look up your country. I know for Jamaica you don't, and for most Caribbean countries you don't. So look, I know for Germany you might lose your retirement benefits, but not all countries are the same. So definitely look into doing your citizenship, because if you vote, you're able to speak for your family and friends and help to create reforms, because we know we need a lot of reforms in regards to immigration. So definitely look at that option and apply early, because they do have a backlog. And I always say it's the only protection you have, because if you just have a green card, you're not really protected, because you could lose it, or you could get into trouble. You could randomly get into trouble and lose your status. All right, so just be aware of that. And as I mentioned earlier, keep all your documentation up to date. Look at your documents, ensure that they are valid. You can go ahead and try to get your driver's license if you have a case pending. I know in Florida, if you have a case pending, once you could bring a copy of your receipt, you're able to get a driver's license, but you have to show that you have a case pending. A lot of people are not aware of that. So some people say, oh, I need a driver's license, I need, to drive, but that's an option for you, but you have to have proof that you have a petition pending, such as, and the DMV will grant you a temporary driver's license. All right, so those are things that you could do while a case is pending, and just be aware that right now they are issuing 5-year work authorization for individuals who are going through the immigration process, and it's because some petitions are taking a longer time than expected. Some are processed very quickly, some areas are not, especially cases that were done during COVID or pre-COVID. Those cases are taking a longer time to be processed. So just be mindful and be aware of that. A lot of applications are going in, backlogs. So it's not that something is wrong with your case. If there was, they would ask you for information or say they're gonna deny your case, but you can provide this information by a deadline. Always keep up with the deadlines. Make sure you provide them before the deadline. All right. I want to thank you all for tuning in. I see we have 1 minute. It was great to have you on. Please share and tell your family. All right. Have a wonderful afternoon, and see you again